the Solar 42, the Voltage Lab 2, and the Syntrx II. These are what I consider to be analog playgrounds. You can take any of these and you can use it by itself with just a pair of headphones on your lap at the kitchen table, and you can make all types of different crazy sounds and music, hours and hours of fun. This video is not sponsored. I'm not affiliated with any of the companies that manufacture these or any other company that sells these at the time that this video was recorded. Now you might find yourself in a predicament like I was in a couple of years back. I was trying to decide which one of these would be best, and obviously I really couldn't make up my mind, so I ended up getting all three. That might not be something that you want to do because these are definitely not inexpensive synthesizers. Right now, at the time this video was recorded, the Solar 42 is going for somewhere around $2,100–2,200. I did pay full price for this, and we're talking about US dollars here. The Syntrx II is going for a similar price. I was able to get this secondhand on Reverb for significantly less than $2,000, actually right around $1,700. And I think I paid about $1,500 plus tax for the Voltage Lab 2 during a Black Friday sale. So they're not inexpensive, as I said. This video might help you decide which one is right for you. So starting with the Solar 42. The Solar 42 is an amazing instrument, as all these are. This one to me is sort of easier to use. I mean, none of these are really difficult. I would say that the most difficult of these three to get to know for me personally was the Voltage Lab 2. But none of them are really difficult, especially if you take your time and look at the different videos that are online and read the manual. You may not have to read the manual cover to cover, but you're going to need to read at least portions of the manual for all of these. That's what I would highly recommend you do anyway. But the Solar 42 has such a wide range of sounds, going all the way from really long drones and lush chords to melodic passages that you can play with the keyboard if you want to. You can make it sound traditional. You can make it sound really weird. And with the 13 different effects cards that it comes with, it just really gives you a wide range of sounds. I'm not going to go into complete detail. I've made some other videos about the Solar 42, and of course you can find other videos online. I'm going to put links in the description so that you can watch some of my favorite videos about each of these three instruments here. Basic overview of the Solar 42 is that it has the 4 main drone voices that have 5 oscillators each. Now those oscillators are fixed in pitch. You can control the overall pitch of all 5 oscillators to some degree with the voltage control, with the light sensor, where it detects how much light is getting to the sensor, and you can use your hand, for example, to block that off. Again, there's a lot of other videos out there, including ones that I made that demonstrate this in more detail. You can also control it through CV in, the pitch, but it's not precise. So technically you can control the pitch with an external device that has CV out, like an MPC, for example, but it would be tricky to get that precise if you're trying to tune these and actually play these with a sequence there. It's going to be tough. These oscillators here, that's drone number 3 and number 6, are very interesting. Again, like those main drone voices at the top, you can't precisely control the pitch. You can get really close And with the CV-in, again, with an external device, you can have some control over it. It's just tricky. So a lot of times those voices are best just left droning in a continuous state, maybe modifying each other, using FM to make some variations, and low frequency oscillators to make some variations. My personal favorite of the different voices on here are VCO-A and VCO-B, which are probably the most boring and conventional of the oscillators that are here. In some ways, you might consider them boring because they have a basically traditional subtractive layout with a ADSR. They each have a sub oscillator that you can activate. There is FM capability between the two. With those, because they have the 1 volt per octave CV-in, you can control them like a traditional synthesizer with precise pitch control. Now, none of this is precise, though. Whenever you turn this on, after it warms up, you tune the oscillators, there is a chance, a really good chance, that later on in that same session, things are going to be out of tune. So that's something that you need to expect whenever you're using the Solar 42. It has a 5-step sequencer that can be reduced to 4 steps or 3 steps. That's very similar to like something you might find on a Buchla style, what they call West Coast synthesizer, and other types of modular synthesizers. And then it has a sequencer that's built into the keyboard. The keyboard is the only place where you can store presets. You can store just 4, and it's for settings specific to the keyboard, like scale, pitch, whether the keyboard is split, the sequencer mode, and some other settings like that. There are some LFOs, and then the joystick. I make a lot of use of the joystick that has separate X and Y controls. And I should mention that this is semi-modular, which means that you don't have to have any patch cables plugged into it at all to make noise, which is something else that I really like about it. But it's a lot more fun whenever you do some patching. So that's normally what I do. So you can trigger VCO-A and B either together or separately, independently, with this keyboard, depending on what mode you have the keyboard in. And the other drones you can trigger, again, not with pitch, but you can use these buttons here like gates to turn the other voices either on or off. The 13 different effects cartridges are really, really fun to use. You can load one effect off of one card and then another effect off of another card. And there are 3 effects per card. The filter section and the effects section are 2-channel, so you can have it left and right, and all the voices can be panned left or right. So it makes for a wide, lush, interesting stereo spread if that's what you want. You don't have to do that. There is an external input so that you can run an external source such as a microphone into the envelope follower and do different things with that. I actually haven't done that yet, so I need to. And then it also has a contact microphone here that I rarely use, but that can be used as a trigger and as an envelope for different things. And it also makes sound, a percussive sound, if you want to use that. For this first sound demo with the Solar 42, what you're hearing is some white noise mixed in. We are using the Magic effects card, and it's blending in different sounds. We've got the sequencer going, and we're also modulating the pitch of the first drone voice in the upper left-hand corner with light sensor and with the joystick. You may not be able to hear that real well, but there is some pitch control going on there. The Solar 42 can obviously make really strange sounds. It can also make sounds that we might consider to be like more traditional. So here we've got some filter sweeps going on. I really like to use my synthesizers down in the lower registers a lot, not as much in the high registers. So here we've got the low and kind of middle upper registers going on in this short demo here. One other thing that I didn't mention is that in addition to the stereo left and right outputs on the Solar 42, you've also got dry outputs from each of the main VCO-A and VCO-B oscillators. So that can be really handy. You can run VCO-A and B out through different effects, and you can also route them at the same time through the internal effects if you want to. The Solar 42 does not have USB in or MIDI in of any type, or MIDI out for that matter. So synchronization with other gear does come through using the CV in and gate inputs and the CV and gate and envelope outputs if you want to. I do have a couple of videos where I demonstrate this. Like I use the MPC, for example, to basically clip launch different oscillators on the Solar 42. So you can definitely synchronize it fairly easily with other gear if you have gear that has the CV and gate outs. All right, moving along now to the Erica Synths Syntrx II. I was gonna wait until the end of this year to buy this, but then a really good deal came up, a local delivery on Reverb, so I went ahead and purchased it earlier than I'd planned. But I've had my eye on this again for a couple of years. And what I like about the Syntrx II is that it is the fastest of all three of these. It is technically modular because if you don't have anything on the front panel patched at all, then it will not produce any sound. So you do have to actually at least send one of the oscillators to an output before you're going to get sound. A lot of people would consider this to be more like semi-modular because it doesn't have any wires at all. So unlike a traditional modular, you have no wires at all. You could use the gate in and CVN 1 and 2 and interface this with wires that way to other modular type gear if you want to. And of course it does have MIDI in and MIDI out, which I'm really happy because it just makes things so much easier. I really like how you can simply hold down Shift and push the right arrow button and it instantly gives you a random generated patch. Now, the thing about this is that it doesn't truly save the patch. And what I mean by that is it saves the routing between different things, but it doesn't save the positions of the knobs. So even though you're able to save that routing, you're really not saving the patch because as soon as you change any kind of settings on the front panel, it's instantly going to sound completely different, or at least somewhat different than it did when you originally saved the patch. The other thing, it doesn't save the motion recording. There's motion recording for the joystick, but as soon as you switch to a different patch, that motion recording is gone. It does have a built-in sequencer. It's very rudimentary. It's very basic. I doubt that I'm going to use that sequencer really all that much, but it's really good that it's there. It's nice. And who knows, maybe I will use it. Also, even though it appears that the patch matrix is 16 by 16, it kind of is, but it kind of isn't. You have to do extra patching to route things in different ways, and it kind of actually makes it a little bit more limited than you would expect, but I'm not complaining. It's really fun, it's really fast, and with all of these, including the Syntrx II, you can make traditional type synthesizer sounds if you want to, but that's just taking away the fun of the way this is designed. It's really designed that you turn it on, and every time you turn it on, there's a really good possibility that you're going to make something totally different than you've ever made before, and different than you would make on another synthesizer. I have a number of other synthesizers that can do really, really crazy things, but because they have presets that save everything, sometimes I tend to get a little bit lazy. Sometimes I just find myself going through those presets or starting with a preset and tweaking that and not really being as creative as I could be if I was starting with an initialized patch every single time and building a sound from scratch. And that's usually what I do with these. I start from scratch and make something new that I haven't made before, even though it's possible that you could make these types of sounds on other devices, of course. The Syntrx II does have panning for channels 1 and channel 2, so you can get a stereo spread there. The effects are really only stereo if you send it to just one side, and so there are limitations on how wide the stereo spread is. Of course, you can always use external effects in your DAW to expand that stereo image a lot more if you want to. The Syntrx II, just like the Solar 42 and the Voltage Lab 2, does have FM capability where you can modulate the oscillators together. Oscillator 3 is kind of set up to be more of an LFO, but it can go into audio range and it can be another sound source. And it's a really, really nice filter. I really like it, and the filter is fairly versatile because you've got high pass and low pass. You can either use them independently, like one or the other, or you can use them both together. It would have been nice if you could run them in series, but it's okay. I'm really happy with the options that are available there. It also has a noise generator, it has sample and hold, and a ring modulator as well. The envelope is called a trapezoid, and it's different than a lot of other types of envelopes that you might see on what I would call East Coast or more traditional synthesizers. It's not an ADSR, but it can do basically the same thing, and because it's a little different, it means that there's a chance that you're going to do things differently than you would on other types of synthesizers. And then going back to that joystick, as I mentioned, you can record the motion. The joystick can be routed to a lot of different things, and the X and the Y, of course, are independent, just like on the Solar 42. So you can have the X axis routed to 7 different things, and you can have the Y axis routed to like 7 different things if you want to, then record the motion of that. So you can have the motion that you recorded playing back at the same time as the sequencer. Now let's talk about the Voltage Lab 2. The Voltage Lab 2 has been the most difficult of all three of these for me to learn, and I think the main reason for that is this sequencer section and keyboard section down here. What's really interesting about the Voltage Lab 2, it is fully modular. You do have to have at least one cable patch from one oscillator to the output to make a sound. What's interesting though is that you could, if you wanted to, you could take these out and install them in a Euro rack case. You could use them completely separately if you wanted to. This sequencer has been really tricky for me to wrap my head around, and I think it has to do with the button combinations. To me, I don't find the button combinations to be intuitive. They're not difficult. Again, what I need to do is just continue to practice using it, to have the manual next to me, and I'm getting better, I'm getting more used to this and learning things, but I still forget things. Sometimes I find myself pushing different key combinations and then it doesn't do exactly what I expect. And that's not the fault of this. It's my fault for not taking the time to learn this better. In this first example I'm going to show you, I do have the sequencer going, and I've got the yellow part of the sequencer, the bottom row, controlling a set of notes, and then the top row, the red knobs, are in what's called scan mode. And what it does is an incoming signal makes the sequencer change, basically. And I don't know how to explain it all that well, but you'll see that the lights are changing and going in different directions. The notes are being sequenced in unexpected ways on the top row, while on the bottom row it's going in order as you would expect on a normal sequencer. There's a lot of different things you can do with this. You can split the keyboard. You can have it where you are playing notes from the yellow section with your fingers while the other one is being played as a sequencer. You've got chants, you've got random, you've got all kinds of different things that you can do on this. Out of all three of these, this might actually be the one that has the widest variety of strange and unusual and unexpected sounds that you could possibly make. The way that the oscillators interact with each other, the two main oscillators, these are not standard oscillators in any way. They have several different settings, and you can use CV inputs to do different things, and they work with each other and they can be synced with each other. And then you've got what I would call non-traditional envelopes. They're not really exactly envelopes, these function generators. They can be used very similar to a ADSR, similar but not exactly the same. But then there's other things that you can do with these things that I'm still learning about that are really interesting. Also, the dynamics controllers, there's two dynamics controllers, and they can be used like low-pass filters, and that's how I've been using them, but I'm going to be using them in a lot of other different ways because they can do so many other things that it would be a shame just to use them like traditional filters. Then you've got two different effects. You've got what's called the florist, which is a combination of a chorus and flanger basically, but it's different than that. It's a strange hybrid between those two and sometimes even sounds kind of like a reverb. And then you've got a analog delay, I think it's analog, that is somewhat limited, but it just fits with everything else going on here and the complexity of all the other things going on. The limitations of the delay just seem to work well with everything else, because otherwise things could just go crazy. I want to back up a little bit to the chant sequencer that is built into the top, the sound generation portion of the Voltage Lab 2. The chant sequencer is not like a regular arpeggiator like I thought that it would be, it's not predictable. And that's what's great about it. That's what's great about this whole thing, is that things just don't do what you expect them to do. So on the one hand, when you're looking at the Syntrx II and the Solar 42, you can predict what kinds of sounds you're going to get a lot easier, even though they can and do produce all kinds of wild and crazy things. But when you look at it, you can understand the routing. If you understand synthesizers in general, subtractive synthesizers in particular, it doesn't take a lot for you to get what you want out of these, whereas you'll have a harder time getting exactly what you want out of this, but you're going to get unexpected and creative things. And that's the strong point of the Voltage Lab 2. Now, it only has mono output. So if you send the output to the headphones, for example, it's just mono, and that is one thing that I think is a real shame. But I believe, I haven't tried this yet, and I haven't seen anybody do this online, but I would expect that with the two dynamics controllers and even with the oscillators in general, I don't see any reason why you couldn't output those. The only reason I say go through the dynamics controllers is because then you could turn the levels down. But I believe that you could probably send different things out to your multi-track recorder. Audio output is obviously not the same as line output, so just be very, very careful and start with really, really low levels if you're going to attempt this yourself. Maybe do some research and see if anybody else has done this. I'm going to attempt this myself very soon, and if I do, I'll make a video about it so that I can demonstrate how to do it safely. The Voltage Lab 2 does have MIDI in and MIDI out. The keyboard portion can, in addition to sending out CV, gate, and other crazy things, it can also send MIDI output, and this can receive MIDI input on the top row. So you can work with other gear really, really nicely with this. It doesn't have your standard 5-pin MIDI. It does have the MIDI, the miniature jacks that convert the 1/8 inch into the MIDI jack, but at least it has real MIDI in, unlike the Solar 42. something I don't like about the Voltage Lab 2, and it's not an issue with the device itself, it's an issue with me, is once you start patching a lot of different wires, I find that to be a little troubling to my ADHD, OCD brain. So sometimes the wires kind of get in the way of things. People who work with modular all the time are used to this, and it's one of the reasons why I don't tend to use modular. In fact, I was never going to buy anything modular, but I kind of accidentally got into modular by buying this because I didn't know that it was actually a fully modular device. But it still keeps me from going down that rabbit hole. So that's another reason why you might want to consider the Voltage Lab 2, is if you're thinking about getting into modular, but you don't want to invest thousands and thousands of dollars in a large modular system. Or you might be like me, where you know that once you start, it's going to be very difficult to stop. You're not going to want to just have one small case for your modular. You're going to end up getting another case and another case. And then if you have a case that has empty slots, if you're like me, you're going to want to fill it. So it's just going to lead to, I'm afraid, possibly endless spending. And as you can see, I already spend quite a bit on this hobby, so I don't need anything else that tempts me to want to spend even more. If I had to choose just one of these three synthesizers to keep, and I had to sell the other two, for me it would be the Solar 42. It's not better or worse than these other two synthesizers. All of this is subjective. It's just this is the one that connects with me. From the ergonomics, the way it looks, the way it's packaged, and the way that the sounds are generated, it all makes sense to me. It was pretty easy for me to learn. I love the effects. And so this is my number one. A very, very close second for me personally would be the Syntrx II. Even though it doesn't have as wide of a sound palette as either of these two instruments, it's still extremely versatile and it's so fast. And what I mentioned earlier about not being able to really save your patches completely, one way that I get around this is what I've been doing is I'll take a picture of the knob settings. And so it shows the knob settings in the picture and it shows the matrix settings. And then I also record a snippet of sound that I produce with that patch and I put them in a folder. I know that's tedious, okay? But what it can do is it allows me to listen to a sound and then I'm like, okay, yeah, I want to get something really close to that sound. So I can use the photograph to get the knobs and all of the switches really, really close. Now, if I have recorded motion in the joystick, of course, that's not going to be able to be reproduced. But again, that's going to make me create something new. That's what creativity should be about for a lot of us, not everybody. But it's exploring, it's an experience, making something new. And sometimes you're only going to make something in that moment and it won't get recorded. Or if you want to make sure that you capture it, then you better be running with all three of these. Have that recorder going at all times because you never know when you're going to create something that you've never created before and you'll never create again. And that's what I really like about all three of these synthesizers. The Voltage Lab 2 would be my third choice, but it's so close. It's so close. And that's just because, again, it doesn't quite gel with me exactly the same as these other two instruments do. But it does so much and it does it so well that that's why all three of these synthesizers are sitting here. And I have no intention of selling any of them. There's a lot of other synthesizers in my studio. I've got right around 30 right now altogether. And several of those other synthesizers I would definitely consider selling. Some of my vintage stuff, for example, like my JP8000. Even though I love the JP8000, the Roland D50, I've got a Roland JX10, and those are awesome synthesizers, but I would definitely consider selling those before I would sell any of these. And that's nothing against Roland. I love Roland. It's just I can get those sounds from other things that I have in the studio. All right, let's talk a little bit about some alternatives, lower cost alternatives, because even though you might be able to spend the money on something like this, it doesn't mean you want to, okay? It may not be the smartest decision for you at this time. So I would highly recommend, as an alternative, the Belanger 2600 in combination with something like the BX10 sequencer that they just came out. That's going to give you hours and hours of fun, and it's a really versatile setup. It's a great instrument. It's very well made. It is definitely worth that price. I think it's worth more than what Belanger charges for it, quite frankly. So I would highly recommend that, and another alternative might be the Belanger K2, and there's other Belanger instruments. Of course, there's many other alternatives that I haven't mentioned, other Belanger gear and other things out there. If you have ideas, then please feel free to mention that in the comments. And when it comes to DAWs, software synthesizers that can give you this kind of creativity, what comes to mind for me pretty quickly is any type of modular plugin. For example, I have Bitwig 6, and in Bitwig, it has something called the Polygrid. And with the Polygrid, if you're not familiar with it, again, you don't have to buy any other plugins. It's just built into it. You can create modular synthesizers from the ground up. You can get really, really complex with these things. It has the equivalent of maths. It has all types of different oscillators, wavetable. In Bitwig 6, though, you can create, for example, a synthesizer that has 27 oscillators and 20 filters and 20 LFOs, and you can make it polyphonic, meaning that for every single note you play, all those oscillators, filters, and LFOs play. I know there's other alternatives out there too, so once again, if you have something that you'd like to mention, please feel free to put that in the comments. Another thing I'd like to hear from you is if you own one or more of these synthesizers and you have thoughts about it, or if you're thinking about getting one of these and why you will or will not get one or more of these. I'd really be interested. All right, thank you for watching, and have a great day.